TWM podcast.
The final episode of Dark Side of the Ring focused on the sad passing of Owen Hart in 1999. This was rough. It not as in a bad show. I mean, as in it was genuinely like a difficult watch because it's an insight and more insight into stuff that we are kind of full and aware of. I freely admit I watched this on Tuesday morning, Wednesday morning, and got a little bit teary. I don't know whether you want to divulge into the text you sent me about you watching Dark Side of the Ring.
I was watching it and I actually had to stop watching it because I started just uncontrollably sobbing. And do you know, even now, and as at the minute after, because I started from the beginning and I managed to get through it. I did cry, but I'd managed to get through it. It really made me hate WWE.
Oh, literally before we started recording, Kevin Dunn is now trending because people are just talking about how much of a piece of crap he is. And it does, this is one of those, literally, as the title suggests, this is one of the dark sides of wrestling, to show, this stuff happened on the regs, and this one is like the Jimmy Snooker thing, but to an nth degree. This is WWE seemingly getting out of being liable for a death.
It's fucked. I can't.
Yeah, let's talk about the thing as a whole. So, I will say, I feel like it's one of the. I had this chat with Mike before we recorded on Wednesday, saying that it's one of those things of, I think if you're a wrestling fan, you love Bret Hart. But then if you're a real nerdy wrestling fan, you're one of the people who go, I think you'll find Owen Hart was better than Bret, because I love...
100%.
I'm not a massive fan of Bret Hart. I've said this before.
I'm not. I prefer Owen.
I prefer Owen. Owen does more... I think it might just be my style. He does more flip-de-doos and is more hilarious, whereas Bret... Yeah, I've never been a big fan of Bret. Bret's good, just not my cup of tea. Well, yeah. Owen Hart is very much my cup of chai. And then they talk about the Hart family, and all I could think of was Hart Thanksgiving and Christmas would be an absolute madness.
I'm not being funny. Imagine having to buy presents for everyone.
Yeah, and I love the whole family thing of
no.
It's all the boys became wrestlers, and then all the females just married wrestlers. It is the most stereotypical 70s and 80s thing, isn't it? It's
yeah, pretty much.
You work in the family business, woman. You marry into the family business. We then also see the weird thing where Jericho is not only narrating this, he's also a talking head in it, which was strange.
What was that?
And then we get clips of young Owen Hart, and you see people. There's been comparison before. Obviously, Jericho patterned his style on Owen Hart, and Daniel Bryan. The other one I got, and it might just be watching him do the backflip over and over again. I think Pete Dunne must be a massive Owen Hart fan.
100%.
Yeah, if I ever get a chance, because obviously it comes few and far between now. He's a big NXT star. We used to see him every month in Camden. I need to ask him, are you a big Owen Hart fan? Because I watched that Dark Side of it, and just they seem so similar in their style. And the other thing is, because we've never seen I've never really seen this side of the story. According to WWF side of it, Martha Hart is portrayed as Satan. She's denying Owen Hart to be in the Hall of Fame. She's a vindictive, horrible person that just wants money. I've never seen this side of it, so this was a very interesting thing.
Mate, yeah, eye-opening.
Yeah. I didn't know that Owen had a son and a daughter.
Nor did I.
I generally did not know.
But oh my god, how much of a spitting image of her dad is his daughter?
Oh, well, yeah. I think it's my first thing I wrote down was Owen Hart loves trains. And I literally, this sounds like a stereotype. I looked at Athena and went, she either snowboards or she surfs. What? She just has that look of someone that does either or.
She has that, what's that style called? I can't even think of that style.
Skater snowboarder style, isn't it?
Yeah. She's definitely one of them.
Where they have a look at heel Owen Hart, and they showed the Owen and Brett stuff, and they didn't show him saying, I kicked your leg out of your leg, which was upsetting. We probably got a lot of younger listeners to this show, for the Impact and Total Bella stuff, and talk about this. I wasn't a fan at this point, but I've watched it several times. If you haven't watched it, go and watch Owen versus Brett at WrestleMania 10.
Oh, so good.
It's like one of the best wrestling matches ever. And I'm not a massive Bret Hart fan. That and the cage match from SummerSlam is just really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
But they keep hammering home to the fact that Owen, unlike Bret, unlike Anvil, unlike Davey Boy, he was like, it's a job and I want to be a dad first. And he'd like, and talk about him cancelling or moving appearances to like go to these train things. But Owen really loves trains. Like to be a proper dad. And obviously it then leads up to like this, like basically the very, very sad end to this. And they talk about the Owen Hart stuff after the Montreal Screwjob, and it does raise the question about, did they keep Owen to keep the family sweet? Did they really see him as like a big deal, or was it one of those cases of like a Daniel Bryan, like a Johnny Gargano, or like a thingy? Like, did they go, well, you're good, but you're small, so are we going to push you? I feel like it's the second one. They're like, we need to keep Owen in the WWE to keep the family sweet, because if we don't have any of them there, none of them are going to come back.
No, and then we're probably going to lose.
Yeah.
As terms of ratings go.
Imagine if Owen, Brett, imagine if the whole Hart Foundation just rocked up in WCW.
Fucking hell.
And then we talk about Owen Hart being an honest man. I knew about this story beforehand, about
I didn't.
The Owen and Jeff thing, where the end of the story is meant to be like Owen falls in love with Deborah and that leads to the breakup of the tag team. And he's like, no, I'm married. I don't want it to seem like on TV that I'm cheating on my wife. And I was just like, a good man. He's a very good man.
Yeah.
Then we get to the situation surrounding his passing. Now, I don't know about you watching this. You know when you get those weird events where almost the person knows?
Yeah.
I feel like it's one of those things, one of those weird things, if you look at hindsight, that Owen almost knew that when he was leaving, he wasn't coming back.
Yeah, I think there is a part of him that knew.
Because, like, they obviously talk about how the last minute changing of his entrance coming down from the ceiling. They did show, I've never seen it before, I did laugh quite hard at them showing the clip of him coming down on the zip wire and then getting stuck and then getting the shit kicked out of him because he can't get out of the thing,
yeah, no,
which is a great spot. Like, I didn't realize they were doing take the piss out of Sting, which is very, very funny and very, very Vince Russo. But the fact that the last thing Owen said to his son Oj was like, look after your mum and your sister, and I'm like, that's just foreboding, isn't it?
It's something you'd literally see in a film and be like, oh, really?
Yeah. Like, that's not
but
real.
This
actually happened. And there was lots of signs making it seem like he didn't know, like he knew that something wasn't right, and he had that gut feeling. And then we get to the incident, and we get an interview with Jimmy Calderas, who was in the ring as it happened. And I can't imagine being they talk about Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler. I can't imagine Jimmy Calderas being in the ring. And I think luckily for him, in a weird way, he obviously wasn't facing it. He was turned away. But imagine just like hearing that thump and turning around and seeing like a colleague just. It's that.
So they didn't.
Go on.
No, did he just land in the ring, or did he smack his
From
head
what
on the
I remember,
turnbuckle?
because I remember reading up a lot about this, just being because the one thing I would actually, because about morbid curiosity, have you ever watched Over the Edge '99?
No.
I have, and the first time I watched it was by pure coincidence. People might remember this back in the day, before the network, and people used to like, before Twitch was a thing, there was like something called Justin.tv, and people would stream on that. I think actually might be the old name for Twitch. And someone used to do a stream that was just WWF and WCW as it happened from like 97 to 2000, like 1997 to 2001. Just like every TV, every pay-per-view. And when I was at uni in 2008, 2009, that's what I'd watch if I wanted to watch wrestling. I'd just whack that on and watch whatever episodes of like Nitro or Shotgun Saturday Night they had on there. And one time I had it on, and Over the Edge 99 was on. It's the first time I'd ever seen it, because you couldn't really buy it anywhere. So I'd watched pay-per-view, and then when I got the network, morbid curiosity got the better of me, and I watched the whole show straight through. Because obviously you're not watching it to see Owen Hart fall, because that doesn't get shown on camera. I just wanted to watch kind of the fallout. Bad choice of words, I apologise there, but like the aftermath of what happened surrounding the whole thing. And of course, the one thing that everyone is now lambasting Kevin Dunn for is in his headset. He goes to JR, Owen Hart's dead, and you're live in 10, 9, 8.
What the actual only I was so angry.
Yeah,
so angry.
That's such a heartless thing. Like when if you look into like the Brian Pillman, like passing, if you look into that, there was like a lot more tact in that situation. And even then, the night after he died on Raw, they interviewed his grieving widow, which is still tactless, but there was more tact than having Kevin Dunn being like, "Oh, by the way, your co-worker's dead. You're alive in 10 seconds." See,
the thing with me for JR is I don't understand how he continued, because I'm not been in this situation, but if that had been me and someone had said to me, "Oh yeah, your co-worker's dead and you're live in 10," I'd have thrown my headset down and walked off.
Well, you got to think of like a modern day ish equivalent. Obviously, he didn't pass, but
what doesn't understand is how corrupt it is. Even if he wasn't dead at the time he fell, that still would have become an active crime scene.
No, this is what I was going to say. Look at a modern equivalent. He didn't pass away. Jerry Lawler having the heart attack on Raw. Michael Cole did 2 bits to commentary, and then there was no commentary the rest of the show.
No. Oh, I remember.
Yeah, because I remember.
It took me ages to remember that. Then.
Yeah. And you could see, like, he was just, like he thought that he was having an Owen Hart situation there, because he didn't know whether Jerry Lawler was alive or dead at that point. And, like, that one, like, this whole thing, and Martha Hart raised it, because, first of all, the first thing that broke me, even though he's a dick, and some of the things he's been saying the last, like, few weeks have been reprehensible, particularly about Becky Lynch and Dana Brooke, watching someone like Jim Cornette just break down about this Owen Hart thing was very, very rough. Like, so watching these big, tough wrestlers break down about this.
Yeah.
But Martha Hart made a really good point that I've never, ever, ever thought of. It was an active crime scene. Why didn't the police shut the show down?
It doesn't make sense. Legally, I might be going a little bit in depth because I love a good conspiracy theory, but in my head, I'm honestly looking at this as maybe it could have been a murder. I don't know why my head goes that way.
But that's the thing. At that point, even then, they don't know whether whether he's been pushed, whether something's happened, whether and still, even if you don't look at it like as a murder thing, it's still a crime if it's accidental death, because that's gross. That could be gross negligence. The police should have come in, and that's one of those things that makes me raise the question of, did WWF at the time tell the whole truth to the medical staff about what happened? Because surely, if they've gone, someone's fallen from the roof, there's been an accident, the show would be shut down. So I don't know, one, why in their right mind they carried on with the show. But then again, we do know, because it's Vince like, the show must go on, pal. But I don't know, it's not the why, it's how it was allowed to carry on.
Yeah, because even if, like, say for example, I don't know, did he die actually in the ring, or did he die when he got to the hospital? I
think he was on the gurney in the ambulance when he went. I'm not sure though.
Right. So at that point, even if they decided to carry on whilst he was still alive at the time, as soon as he had died, then it should have been shut down. Production should have been shut down. They should have shut down the whole building and been like, everyone needs to get out. This is now an active crime scene. Yeah,
it's and then they talk about the one thing, this also broke me a little bit, the last thing that Owen Hart said was look out. So he was worried about everyone else till the end. And then we get some very rough bits. We get Martha Hart detailing when she was told that Owen Hart had passed away. We hear Oge's side of the story, like he has really no idea what's going on. And he talks about how Martha was very matter-of-fact, which is a bold move to do with kids, but I think it's the right thing to do. I've dealt with it personally. I was 18, my brother was 12? Something like 12, like 10 to 12. And my mum was very upfront when like my dad passed away decade ago now. But I also feel that's the right thing to do, to not kind of sugarcoat it. You need to be upfront. We see Owen Hart's funeral, and it was pretty much a state funeral because obviously it's Canada. The Harts are pretty much gods.
Yeah, they're pretty much royalty, aren't they, in Canada?
And then it pretty much becomes, like I said, how we had, like, I know possibly it's due to Owen Hart's widow and stuff like that. Like, how this wasn't a film. Like, Owen Hart's widow or Martha Hart at the funeral being like, I'm going to get to the bottom of this. There will be a day of reckoning. That sounds like something out of an actual, like, crime thriller.
It proper does.
And like O said, his mum changed, and like grief does weird things. Basically, just made her into like this driven person. And then we see the police photos, which very much like the Benoit crime photos. It's just hard to see. And then we see the view from the catwalk, like where he's going to dive. And you look at the gap, and I just looked at that and went, that's like, there's not enough room for him to go down safely. And then all of the stuff starts building up. Martha shows us, like, she has the clip that broke on Owen Hart's thing.
What the fuck was that? I wouldn't even trust that to hold up my bra.
Yeah. It's like, they had someone with, like, no experience rigging him up, and they were more worried about, one, saving money, and two, they wanted a quick release because it's like he was fiddling with it. And actually, Mike made a really, really good point. Again, off pod, we were talking about this before we recorded Wednesday's Wrestling World Report. He was like, that doesn't wash with him, because they said they wanted to, like, the whole thing was mocking Sting, but they wanted it to be a cleaner removal than when Sting does it. And the good point was if they were taking the piss out of Sting, why didn't they not like clip like 5 different clips to Owen Hart to take the piss out of the fact that Sting takes ages to get himself, like for example, again, booking here, wouldn't it have been a really funny spot at one point to take the piss out of Sting, the fact he takes ages for like Owen Hart to have like 10 different clips on him, and it takes so long that the ref starts the match and he gets counted out. Like, that doesn't wash with me. But then we get to Vince McMahon is a cunt mode, because Vince McMahon sued a grieving widow because she sued him for wrongful death, and he wanted the case to be moved to Connecticut so it's in his favour. And then we see the press conference, where typical Vince McMahon, which we did see again with a bunch of stuff before, that his response always is to go immediately on the offensive.
Oh yeah,
like
because he knows he's wrong.
Yeah, when that woman starts questioning him, he immediately goes, right, I'm going from Vince to Mr. McMahon, and I'm going to just, like, a man died on your watch. Why are you going on the aggressive? And sorry, with the end of this, we kind of discussed the key points. Owen Hart's never going to be in the Hall of Fame. And beforehand, I would sit there and be like, well, I don't think that's fair to his legacy. Watching this, I think the family are bang on to be like...
Yeah, I think they're completely... I did think that at first as well, when they were like, he's not in the Hall of Fame. I was like, why the fuck is he not in the Hall of Fame? Like, how the fuck is he not in it yet? And then when she explained it, I was like, oh, you know what? Yeah, nah, it makes sense.
It does make sense. And then it also kind of... Remember a few years ago when Mark Henry got put in the Hall of Fame, he did like this tearful plea for Martha to put Owen in the Hall of Fame. And from now, that's now tinged. So I feel like, as Vince told him to go out and say that. Like, because he's like, it's one of those things with the Hall of Fame. It's a nice little thing they do. But I do think sometimes when it comes to people that have, like, wronged the WWE or left the WWE, Vince kind of does it as, like, we own you now, pal. We own your legacy. And I feel like that Owen Hart thing... Martha will never let him have it, and like any of that like part of the Hart family is never going to let him have it, because like the Martha Hart has been like ostracized from the rest of the Hart family because they are all in the back pocket of Vince McMahon. So
yeah, like,
and I mean, like, I think Martha's hit the nail on the head there. It's like, if we give in and let him be inducted, like, Owen's legacy is then owned by the WWE, and they don't want it to be. They want it to be owned by the Hart family. So, this has been a fantastic series. Like, I need to go back, and I was in and out of the first season. I want to go back into it, and I'm very, very much hoping. I do think we will. We'll get a third season of this, but. Yeah, what 2 stories to bookend on? There'll be some great episodes in between, but to start with Benoit and end with Owen Hart, it's been a journey.